Feeling overwhelmed by negative news? 5 Good News Stories is your daily dose of what's going right in the world. Like the 103-year-old granny who got caught speeding in her sports car because she was living life to the fullest, or the family who found their missing cat after 3 years when it showed up at their vacation rental. Remember Flop the penguin's incredible comeback after his injury? And that guy who broke the world record for most high fives in 24 hours while raising money for charity? These are the stories that remind us the world is still full of wonder and joy. 5 Good News Stories. Pure positivity 3 times a week. 5 Good News Stories, available wherever you get your podcasts. 5 Good News Stories.
Which country consumes the most coffee per person? Italy? Colombia? Somewhere else? I'm Mark Ellison, and on 5 daily trivia questions, I deliver fascinating facts and surprising statistics every weekday. Whether you're a history buff, science geek, or pop culture fanatic, there's something for everyone. 5 daily trivia questions, and the biggest coffee drinkers, it's Finland, with the average Finn consuming over 26 pounds of coffee annually. 5 daily trivia questions.
Calaroga Shark Media.
My name is Daniel Marsh. Last time, I told you how journalist Eliza Morgan published an explosive exposé that sent shockwaves through Washington. How Captain Maya Santiago orchestrated a desperate escape attempt in Yemen, sacrificing herself to give her teammates a chance to flee with critical intelligence. And how National Security Advisor James Reynolds lost control of the investigation as the FBI stepped in. This is Signal Lost, March 19th, 2025. Washington, D.C., 10:30 a.m. The Senate Intelligence Committee hearing was standing room only, with cameras broadcasting live to a nation hungry for answers. I sat in the press gallery, watching as Franklin Webb took the oath, right hand raised, voice steady as he swore to tell the truth. They always swear to tell the truth. The question is always which version of the truth they choose to share. Webb cut an impressive figure. Tailored suit, silver hair perfectly groomed, the confident bearing of a man accustomed to power and its exercise. As CEO of Obsidian Security Solutions, he had been called to testify about his company's role in providing intelligence for Operation Sandstorm and his subsequent involvement in the unofficial investigation. Senator Richard Campbell, committee chairman and longtime ally of defense contractors, began the questioning with what seasoned observers immediately recognized as softballs. Mr. Webb, could you explain for the committee the nature of your company's involvement with Operation Sandstorm? Webb leaned slightly toward the microphone. Obsidian Security Solutions provided standard intelligence support through our existing contracts with the Defense Department. Our role was limited to analysis of regional security conditions, potential threats, and verification of target information provided by government agencies. And after the operation failed, you were asked to assist in determining what went wrong. Is that correct? Yes, Senator. National Security Advisor Reynolds requested our help in analyzing the security breach. Given our cybersecurity expertise and existing security clearances, we were well positioned to assist. It was a masterful performance, confident but not arrogant, detailed without revealing anything substantive, creating the impression of transparency while actually disclosing nothing of significance. The Democratic ranking member, Senator Eleanor Mitchell, took a more aggressive approach. Mr. Webb, internal White House communications indicate you were conducting what amounted to a parallel investigation outside normal oversight channels. Was this approach suggested by you or by Mr. Reynolds? Webb didn't blink. Senator, with American lives at stake, time was of the essence. The traditional investigative process, while thorough, can be slower than circumstances sometimes permit. Mr. Reynolds and I agreed that using our existing capabilities could accelerate the identification of the breach, potentially saving the captured soldiers. And did you find the source of the breach? We identified several potential vectors, all of which were shared with the FBI when they assumed control of the investigation. Senator Mitchell leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Mr. Webb, Obsidian received a $20 million contract expansion just 3 days before Operation Sandstorm. What services justified that additional expenditure? For the first time, Webb hesitated, almost imperceptibly. That contract modification covered enhanced reconnaissance capabilities in multiple theaters, not specific to Yemen. Yet your company had personnel in Yemen coordinating with local assets less than 48 hours before the operation commenced. Isn't that unusual for a firm providing only analytical support? We maintain operational capabilities in numerous regions to support our intelligence products. Having assets on the ground ensures our analysis reflects current conditions rather than outdated information. The exchange continued, with Webb parrying increasingly pointed questions about his company's activities, contracts, and relationships with foreign entities. He never appeared rattled, never contradicted himself, never provided an opening that could be exploited. But watching closely, I noticed something revealing in his performance. Webb wasn't just defending himself or his company. He was steering the conversation away from specific aspects of the operation, particularly anything related to Captain Santiago, or the nature of the targeting system she had access to. Those omissions spoke volumes to anyone paying attention. Webb was protecting something beyond his company's reputation or government contracts. He was obscuring the true objective of whoever had orchestrated the Yemen ambush. As the hearing continued, Eliza Morgan was working from her secure location, meticulously constructing a financial map of Obsidian security solutions, bank transfers, shell companies, subsidiary relationships. If Webb was connected to the conspiracy, the evidence would be found in the money trail. What she discovered was both illuminating and deeply troubling. 3 months before Operation Sandstorm, a Cayman Islands holding company had acquired a substantial non-controlling interest in one of Obsidian's subsidiaries, a firm specializing in cyber operations and electronic warfare. The holding company, Meridian Strategic Ventures, appeared legitimate on the surface but dissolved upon closer inspection into a complex web of offshore entities impossible to trace to their ultimate owners. Around the same time, Obsidian had begun aggressively recruiting former military personnel with specific technical backgrounds, experts in targeting systems, satellite communications, and electronic warfare. The same systems that would be vulnerable if someone obtained Captain Santiago's access credentials. Eliza compiled her findings into an encrypted document, adding annotations and questions where gaps remained. The picture taking shape was disturbing. A deliberate long-term operation designed to infiltrate American military systems at their most vulnerable points. Not for immediate attack, but for persistent access that could be exploited at critical moments in the future. Her phone rang, a secure line established for communications with her editor. "Morgan," she answered. "We've received information you need to see immediately," her editor said, his voice tense. "Coming to your secure server now." Eliza refreshed her browser, finding a new file in her encrypted workspace. She opened it to discover a classified Defense Department communication that had been leaked to the Tribune. The document was a situation report on an incident in Yemen 18 hours earlier. An American Special Operations team had been dispatched to a location in Sana'a based on intelligence from multiple sources, indicating the presence of captured U.S. personnel. The team had found evidence of recent combat, expended ammunition casings, blood trails, signs of hasty evacuation, but no American prisoners. However, they had recovered something potentially significant, a damaged satellite phone containing a partial message addressed to CENTCOM. The fragments mentioned targeting system compromise and internal betrayal, followed by corrupted data that couldn't be recovered. Eliza's heart raced as she processed the implications. Santiago or her team members had managed to send at least part of a warning message. They had escaped, at least temporarily. But they had also disappeared again, either recaptured or on the run in hostile territory. She immediately connected this information to Webb's careful avoidance of targeting system questions during the hearing. The conspiracy was taking shape, a sophisticated operation to gain access to systems that controlled America's precision strike capabilities across the Middle East and potentially beyond. Eliza began drafting a follow-up article, focusing on the targeting system angle and Webb's connections to the mysterious Meridian Strategic Ventures. The story had evolved from exposing security failures to uncovering what might be one of the most significant intelligence breaches in modern history. As she worked, she received another encrypted message, this one from a source identifying themselves only as Watchdog. The message was brief. Webb is meeting with Russian national Dmitry Voronin tonight. Roosevelt Hotel, 9 p.m. private dining room. Voronin represents interests you should investigate. Eliza hesitated. This could be legitimate intelligence from someone inside Webb's organization. Or it could be disinformation designed to discredit her reporting or worse, lure her into a vulnerable position. After the Yemen ambush, she had no illusions about what these people were capable of. She needed verification before acting on this tip. Quickly, she ran a search on Dmitry Voronin, finding references to a Russian businessman with ties to both his country's intelligence services and various technology firms specializing in cybersecurity. The connection was plausible, even likely. Eliza made her decision. She would observe the meeting but take extensive precautions. This could be the missing piece that connected Webb to the foreign interests behind the operation.
Want this podcast without interruptions? Caliroga Plus delivers this show and over 20 premium shows completely ad-free, right to your favorite podcast player. We've just added exciting new series including Signal Lost. What happens when the most sensitive military intelligence in the world ends up on the wrong phone? White Smoke, taking you behind the scenes of all the interesting things that happen at the Vatican. And Pager Protocol, a thriller about getting exploding pagers into the hands of the bad guys. Plus, receive all your existing favorites like Palace Intrigue about the royal family, daily comedy news, 5 daily trivia questions, and 5 good news stories. Apple Podcast users, simply tap the banner in your Apple Podcasts app that says, Uninterrupted Listening, Spotify and other players. Visit caliroga.com/plus. If you missed all that, check the links in the show notes. It's just $4.99 a month for no ads. Listen on any device, on any player you love, completely hassle-free.
In a world of smartphones and quantum computing, the fate of nations rests on technology from the past. Caliroga Shark Media presents a new podcast, Pager Protocol, a 10-part espionage thriller that will change the way audiences see the world. As an unusually large shipment of pagers makes its way to a volatile region, CIA analyst Sarah Miller grows suspicious. Meanwhile, in Zion City, Nexus Director Amos Ben David sets a daring plan in motion. Agent Eli Cohen is tasked with a mission that could determine the fate of his nation and reshape the entire region. Pager Protocol is available now wherever you get your podcasts.
Meanwhile, in a secure conference room at FBI headquarters, a joint task force was assembling evidence from multiple sources: Mira Patel's testimony, digital forensics from the compromised signal accounts, financial records of key players, and now the fragmentary message recovered in Yemen. Special Agent Thomas Carter, the counterintelligence specialist leading the investigation, stood before a whiteboard covered in names, connections, and timeline markers. 20 years with the Bureau had given him a particular insight into how sophisticated intelligence operations unfolded, the layering of legitimate activities over clandestine objectives, the careful compartmentalization of knowledge, the deployment of unwitting assets alongside knowing conspirators. The targeting system is the key, he told the assembled team. Everything else, the signal breach, the manufactured intelligence, even the public scandal, it's all misdirection. The real objective was to capture Santiago or someone with her access level. An analyst raised her hand. But why go through such an elaborate operation? There are simpler ways to compromise military systems. Because this isn't about a one-time breach, Carter replied. Conventional hacking leaves traces, triggers alarms, forces defensive measures. What they're after is persistent access through legitimate credentials that wouldn't trigger security protocols. Like hiding in plain sight, another agent suggested. Exactly. Once they have biometric authentication from Santiago combined with the access codes they've already obtained, they could introduce subtle modifications to targeting data, calibration errors, coordinate shifts, the kind of changes that might be attributed to technical glitches rather than deliberate compromise. The implications were chilling. America's precision strike capabilities depended on the accuracy of targeting data. Even small errors could result in civilian casualties, missed high-value targets, or friendly fire incidents. Over time, such glitches would erode confidence in systems that military commanders relied upon for critical operations. "What about Webb?" asked the analyst. "How does he fit into this?" Carter tapped a document on the table. Financial Forensics has uncovered links between one of his subsidiaries and a holding company with suspicious characteristics. We're still tracing the ownership chain, but preliminary indicators point to Russian backing, possibly with Chinese involvement as well. So Webb is working for foreign interests? It's more complex than that. Webb built his company on government contracts. I doubt he's an ideological traitor. More likely, he made deals with entities whose true nature or intentions he either didn't fully understand or deliberately ignored. Now he's caught between his government clients and these other interests. Which makes him dangerous, the analyst concluded. A cornered man with resources. Precisely. And he still has one critical advantage. We don't know exactly what was compromised or how far the infiltration has progressed. Until we do, we're working in the dark. The task force dispersed to pursue their assigned angles: financial traces, digital forensics, physical surveillance. Carter remained at the whiteboard, studying the connections between Webb, Reynolds, and the various entities circling around Operation Sandstorm. Something was still missing, a crucial piece that would bring the entire conspiracy into focus. He suspected that piece lay with the 3 Americans in Yemen. If they were still alive, and if they could be recovered, they might hold the key to unraveling the entire operation. In Yemen, Lieutenant Marcus Wade and Specialist Jennifer Chen had been moving continuously for 18 hours, using every evasion technique in their special operations training to avoid capture. Their injuries slowed them, pain and exhaustion taking a mounting toll, but the alternative to continued movement was unacceptable. They had witnessed Captain Santiago's last stand, covering their escape from the communications room with controlled, precise fire that had given them the critical minutes needed to slip away. Neither harbored illusions about her fate. Santiago had made her choice, sacrificing herself so that they might escape with intelligence crucial to national security. Now, hiding in an abandoned building on the outskirts of Sana'a, they were facing the grim reality of their situation. They were injured, hunted, and deep in hostile territory, with minimal resources and no clear extraction path. "The satellite transmission failed," Chen said, her voice hoarse with exhaustion. "We don't know if anyone received our warning." Wade checked their remaining supplies: a sidearm with limited ammunition, a canteen half full of water, a first aid kit nearly depleted from treating their wounds. Not enough to survive much longer, let alone fight their way to friendly forces. "We need local help," he decided. "Someone with connections to get us to the American embassy in Aden or to a military extraction point." "And who do we trust?" Chen asked, the question hanging between them like a physical weight. It was the central dilemma. Their captors had known too much, operated too professionally to be simple insurgents. They had connections, resources, intelligence that could only come from high-level sources. Any local contact might be compromised or susceptible to bribes or threats. "We trust no one completely," Wade replied. "But we make calculated risks based on what Santiago would do." Chen nodded, drawing strength from the invocation of their commander's example. Santiago had always emphasized adaptability over rigid planning, understanding terrain and local dynamics over force application. She would find a way forward, even in impossible circumstances. "There's a clinic 3 blocks south," Chen said, recalling details from their pre-mission briefing on the area. "Run by Doctors Without Borders, international staff, neutral reputation. They might help with medical supplies, maybe communications." "It's also an obvious place for them to look for us," Wade countered. which makes it unexpected. They'll assume we'd avoid medical facilities because of the risk. Wade considered this, weighing dangers against desperate necessity. Their injuries required attention beyond the basic first aid they'd administered. Without proper treatment, infection would become as deadly a threat as their pursuers. We move at dusk, he decided. Approach from the rear. Identify any international staff who might be sympathetic. As they waited for darkness, Wade's thoughts returned to Santiago. Her final orders had been explicit. Get the intelligence out, warn command about the targeting system compromise, expose the betrayal within their chain. She had given her life to make that possible. He wouldn't allow that sacrifice to be wasted. Whatever it took, whatever risks required, they would complete the mission. They would expose the truth about Operation Sandstorm and whoever had orchestrated the ambush. They would ensure that Captain Santiago's last act of courage served its purpose. Back in Washington, James Reynolds sat alone in his office, watching his career and reputation disintegrate in real time across cable news and social media. The Senate hearing, still ongoing, had shifted from Webb to other officials involved in Operation Sandstorm. His own testimony was scheduled for tomorrow. His phone rang, a private number he recognized immediately. "This is becoming unmanageable," Webb said without preamble when Reynolds answered. "I'm doing everything I can to contain it," Reynolds replied, aware of how hollow the words sounded even to himself. "It's beyond containment now. The FBI is tracing financial connections. Morgan is pursuing the targeting system angle. It's only a matter of time before the full scope is exposed." Reynolds felt cold sweat forming on his brow. "What are you suggesting?" "That we consider alternatives to our current approach. Damage limitation rather than prevention." The implication was clear. Webb was preparing to save himself, likely by offering someone else as a sacrifice. Reynolds was the obvious candidate, the public face of the security failure, already implicated by Eliza Morgan's reporting and Mira Patel's testimony. "We had an understanding," Reynolds said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Circumstances have changed," Webb replied, his tone clinically detached. "I'm meeting with certain interested parties tonight to discuss next steps. I suggest you prepare accordingly." The call ended, leaving Reynolds staring at the phone in his hand. Webb was cutting him loose. Worse, he was positioning Reynolds to take the fall for something far beyond the security negligence already exposed, potentially for treason, if the full nature of the conspiracy emerged. Reynolds had choices to make, and quickly. He could wait for the inevitable, allowing himself to be sacrificed to protect Webb and whoever stood behind him. He could flee, abandoning his position and effectively admitting guilt. Or he could fight back, using what he knew to negotiate some form of leniency. The last option required leverage, something valuable enough to trade for his future. Reynolds opened his secure safe, removing a small encrypted drive he had maintained as insurance against precisely this scenario. On it were records of his communications with Webb, including discussions that had never appeared in official channels. It wasn't enough to save him completely. Nothing could erase his culpability in the security failures that had led to American deaths. But it might be enough to shift the focus to the larger conspiracy, positioning him as a flawed public servant who had been manipulated rather than a knowing traitor. Reynolds placed the drive in his pocket and began composing a letter to the FBI director, requesting an urgent meeting before his scheduled testimony. He had been a fool, allowing ambition and fear to cloud his judgment. Now he would pay a price. The question was how high that price would be. As evening settled over Washington, Eliza Morgan prepared for her surveillance of Webb's meeting with the Russian businessman. She had taken extensive precautions, informing her editor of her plans, arranging check-in protocols, carrying both obvious and concealed recording devices. Whatever transpired at the Roosevelt Hotel, there would be evidence. She positioned herself in the hotel bar, angled to observe the entrance to the private dining rooms without being immediately visible. Her cover was simple, a professional woman having a quiet drink, unremarkable among the hotel's typical clientele. At precisely 8:45 p.m., Webb arrived, accompanied by two men with the unmistakable bearing of private security, former military or intelligence, Eliza guessed, noting their constant environmental scanning and positioning that provided maximum coverage of potential approaches. 15 minutes later, another man entered, middle-aged, expensively dressed with the confident stride of someone accustomed to power. Dmitry Voronin matched his photographs, though in person he projected a more commanding presence than his images suggested. Webb greeted him with a handshake that lingered just long enough to suggest familiarity beyond casual business acquaintance. The two men disappeared into a private dining room, leaving their security personnel positioned outside. Eliza weighed her options. She could wait, hoping to observe them when they emerged, perhaps overhear fragments of conversation, but that would yield limited intelligence at best. The real value would be in what was discussed behind those closed doors. She made a calculated decision. Moving casually to the restroom corridor, she confirmed what hotel architecture had suggested. The private dining rooms had server stations immediately adjacent, with doors that would allow staff to enter and exit discreetly. Timing her movement carefully, she slipped into the server station when staff attention was directed elsewhere. From there, she could hear voices from the dining room, not clearly enough for a complete transcript, but sufficient to catch key phrases and the general tone of the conversation. Webb's voice came through first, tense despite its controlled delivery. The situation has accelerated beyond our projected timeline. The targeting system remains secure for now, but two of the assets escaped. If they reach American forces with what they know, Voronin responded, his Russian accent subtle but distinct. This creates complications, yes, but also opportunities. The confusion provides cover for our secondary objectives. The FBI is connecting the financial trails. It's only a matter of time before they reach Meridian. Meridian is designed to dissolve under scrutiny. By the time they untangle it, the next phase will be complete. The conversation continued, discussing contingencies and adjustments to what they referred to as the operation. Eliza recorded what she could, struggling to maintain absolute silence in her concealment. Then came the exchange that sent chills down her spine. The test run is scheduled for tomorrow, Webb said. A minor targeting aberration during a drone operation in eastern Syria. Nothing catastrophic, just enough to validate our access. And if it confirms full integration, then we proceed to Phase 3. Selective manipulation of targeting data across all Middle East operations. Subtle at first, then increasingly significant as confidence in the systems erodes. Perfect, Voronin replied, satisfaction evident in his voice. Not an attack that triggers immediate response, but a cancer that spreads through their decision-making apparatus. They will doubt their own systems, their own data, eventually their own judgments. The strategic brilliance was terrifying. This wasn't about destroying American military capabilities through direct attack. It was about undermining trust in those capabilities from within, creating a crisis of confidence that would paralyze decision-making and response options across the entire command structure. Eliza had heard enough. She needed to get this information to authorities immediately. The test run planned for tomorrow could provide definitive proof of the breach if authorities knew to look for it. She began carefully retreating from her position when a server unexpectedly entered the station. Their eyes met for a frozen moment before Eliza improvised. "Sorry, looking for the restroom," she said with embarrassed confusion, slipping past before the server could question her further. She maintained a casual pace until reaching the hotel lobby, then moved quickly outside to the street where she immediately called her editor on the secure line. "I have confirmation," she said without preamble. "They're testing their access to the targeting system tomorrow, a drone operation in eastern Syria. They've already infiltrated the network. We need to get this to the FBI immediately." "Come in now," her editor replied, tension evident in his voice. "We've received information that Webb's security team has been looking for you. They know you're onto them." Eliza flagged a taxi, constantly checking her surroundings for signs of surveillance or pursuit. As the cab pulled away from the curb, she noticed a black SUV with tinted windows turning to follow. The game had changed. She was no longer just a journalist pursuing a story. She had become a target, possessing information that could expose one of the most sophisticated intelligence operations ever conducted against American military systems. The question now was whether she could get that information to authorities before Webb's people reached her, and what they would do if they caught her.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
In Yemen, night had fallen as Wade and Chen approached the medical clinic from its rear entrance. The facility was modestly secured, a perimeter fence, basic lighting, a few visible cameras. Not designed to repel determined intruders, merely to discourage casual theft or vandalism. Wade moved first, testing the fence for alarms before creating an opening large enough for them to slip through. Chen followed, grimacing as the movement aggravated her injuries. Both understood the risk they were taking. If the clinic staff reported them, they could be captured within minutes. They observed the building's rhythm for 20 minutes, identifying staff movements and security patterns. A rear door appeared to lead to a storage area, with medical personnel accessing it periodically for supplies. Wade timed the intervals, determining a window of approximately 7 minutes between visits. "Ready?" he asked Chen, who nodded despite the pain evident in her eyes. They moved quickly across the open space to the door. Wade tested it, locked as expected. Chen produced a slender metal tool from her kit, inserting it into the lock with practiced precision, despite her injured hands. Within seconds, they heard the telltale click of the mechanism releasing. Inside, they found themselves in a supply room, shelves of medications, bandages, and equipment organized with clinical efficiency. They took only what they urgently needed: antibiotics, proper bandages, pain medication, before seeking a secure position deeper in the facility. A small office provided temporary sanctuary. Wade secured the door while Chen located a computer, powering it on with the hope of establishing communications. "It's networked," she whispered urgently. "I can send an encrypted message through their satellite connection." Wade stood guard while Chen composed a comprehensive briefing: their location, situation, and most critically, the details of what they had learned about the targeting system breach. She emphasized the authentication codes that had already been compromised, and Santiago's biometric access that their captors had been attempting to extract. As she typed, the office door opened suddenly. A woman in medical scrubs stood frozen in the doorway, shock evident on her face at finding armed intruders in the clinic's administrative office. "Please," Wade said immediately, keeping his weapon lowered. "We're American military. We need help." The woman, Dr. Sarah Lindqvist, according to her ID badge, assessed them with the clinical gaze of an experienced physician. Her eyes noted their injuries, their exhaustion, the desperate determination in their posture. "You're the ones they're looking for," she said, her Swedish accent distinct, but her English fluent. "Men have been coming to the clinic asking about injured Americans, offering rewards for information." "We were captured, escaped," Chen explained, still working on the computer. "People died to get this intelligence out. Please, just give us 5 minutes to send this message, then we'll go." Dr. Lindqvist hesitated, weighing medical ethics against the geopolitical complications of harboring fugitives in a neutral aid facility. Finally, she made her decision. "Send your message," she said, closing the door behind her. "I'll bring supplies you can take with you, but you cannot stay here. We treat anyone who needs help, regardless of politics. If they find you here, we lose that neutrality." "Understood," Wade replied, relief evident in his voice. "Thank you." While Chen finished transmitting their intelligence, Dr. Lindqvist returned with a backpack containing medical supplies, food, water, and a satellite phone. This has limited secure communication capability, she explained, demonstrating its operation. Use it sparingly. Every transmission creates risk. Why are you helping us? Wade asked, genuinely curious despite their urgent circumstances. Dr. Lindqvist's expression hardened. 3 months ago, precision airstrikes hit a village 15 kilometers from here. We treated the survivors, children with burns over their bodies, families crushed under rubble. The strike was supposed to hit militant compounds, but something went wrong with the targeting. 27 civilians died. She handed Wade the backpack. If something is compromising your targeting systems, as you believe, many more will die. I'm a doctor. I prevent suffering when I can. The intelligence Wade and Chen possessed wasn't just about national security or military capabilities. It was about preventing the indiscriminate death that results when precision weapons become unpredictable. It was about maintaining the distinction between legitimate military targets and innocent bystanders, a distinction their enemies sought to erase through their infiltration of the targeting systems. With renewed determination, they accepted Dr. Lindqvist's help, planning their next move. The message had been sent, duplicating and expanding on the warning Santiago had attempted to transmit. Now they needed to survive long enough for that intelligence to make a difference. As they prepared to leave through a service exit Dr. Lindqvist had identified, Chen activated the satellite phone one final time, checking for acknowledgement of their transmission. A simple encrypted response had arrived. Message received. Extraction team en route. Coordinates follow. For the first time in days, hope flickered to life. Their warning had reached American forces. An extraction team was coming. If they could reach the designated coordinates and survive until the team arrived, they might yet complete the mission Santiago had sacrificed herself to enable. But between their current location and the extraction point lay kilometers of hostile territory patrolled by forces determined to recapture them. And time was running out, not just for their physical survival, but for preventing the test run Webb and Voronin had discussed. The next 24 hours would determine whether American military systems remained secure or fell victim to one of the most sophisticated infiltration operations in history. The stakes extended far beyond their personal survival to the lives of countless others who would suffer if precision became peril, if America's targeted capabilities became instruments of indiscriminate death. With that understanding driving them forward, Wade and Chen slipped into the Yemeni night, moving toward the extraction coordinates with the desperate determination of soldiers who understood exactly what failure would mean.
Signal Lost is a production of Calaroga Shark Media. Executive producers Mark Francis and John McDermott. The assistance of AI was used in the production of this show.
Miami. Neon dreams. Dark desires. A killer stalks the streets, turning murder into macabre art. Introducing a new limited series podcast from Calaroga Shark Media. The Artist, A Killer's Canvas. This podcast is rated R, intended for mature audiences. The Artist, A Killer's Canvas. Available on all podcast apps now.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.